Hello, my beautiful friends. I hope you guys have had a wonderful week so far. If you're not having a good week, and I'm sorry to hear that, but hey, welcome, sit down, join us, grab a cup of tea, grab your coffee, get comfortable. You're in a safe space. So, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about trusting our intuition versus an emotional trigger or trauma response. This is something I have struggled with on and off very recently. I think as you heal from your individual traumas that you've been through in your life, and as you discover more behaviors and patterns that you need to heal, there comes a moment in time where you do have to learn how to trust yourself again and trust your own intuition and gut instinct. Now, this will be like a little bit on the spiritual side. If you're not super spiritual or that's something you're just not interested in, that's totally okay, but I encourage you to stay and listen and see if maybe this might resonate with you. If you're new here and you're not just stopping by, my name is Sabby. This is a platform that I started a couple years ago to provide tips, tools, knowledge, and guidance based on my own experiences to help other people feel less alone with their mental health. I also have a podcast called Proper Madness. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I recommend going to go check that out. I have a ton of interviews on there with many wonderful people, and listening to one of their stories could really ring true to you, make you feel less alone, and help you get the help that you might need. So if you like mental health podcasts and you suffer with your mental health or you know someone who does, then I definitely recommend subscribing to this channel as well as the podcast so that you're notified of when I post new videos. Now, just my normal disclaimer, I'm not a licensed professional or therapist or psychologist, so before you take any of my advice, I recommend you talk to a professional first. So, trusting our intuition versus having a very visceral, reactive response to a scenario that's happening or what we may think be happening or what we're feeling is very hard to discern. It's something that I'm still working through, but I've come a really long way, so I'm going to share with you my experiences and some ways that I dive deeper to really pick it apart and understand what is what. I am what you call an empath, and I'm going to do a separate video on that, but basically, I'm hyper aware and sensitive to other people's emotions, thoughts, and feelings because I can pick up on really subtle cues and differences in other people, and that's largely due to the fact that I grew up in an environment where I had to learn how to do something like that as a survival coping mechanism. So, there's that portion of being empathetic. Then there's the other side where I am more on the spiritual side. I do kind of feel others' feelings in that way, and sometimes it gets really difficult because I'm like, whose feelings are these right now? Like, I'll get a surge of anxiety out of nowhere and go, I don't have anything to feel anxious about right now. Why is this happening? So, if you kind of have experienced something like that, then you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, then that's okay. But either way, trusting your intuition is something that we rely on in our daily lives to make decisions for ourselves, right? My experience with it is largely in my dating life, my work life, and friends and relationships. I'd say for me, I trust my intuition the most on reading people and whether or not I can trust someone. Now, trusting someone's very difficult when you've gone through a lot of trauma or you haven't had the best experiences with the right people in your life. And that's okay. I've had to sort of relearn how to trust my own instincts. Now, if you've been through any sort of trauma like I have been through, and by that, I mean, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse. It's really hard to learn to trust yourself again because oftentimes those scary experiences can happen with people that we think we can trust. For me, it has largely been a way to figure out who to trust in my life, figure out if certain situations are safe, and to figure out how to make good business decisions. And even as far as who has my best interest, period. Some examples that I can give you, because we all know I love I love explaining things through examples. It's the only way I know how. But essentially, for me with dating, it's figuring out someone's intentions. Now, I don't mean figuring out someone's intentions like, do they just want to sleep with me or do they want to date me? That you just figure out based through someone's actions, how they're treating you, such and such. I was speaking to someone on a dating app, and when I first started to get to know this person, they already gave me about 1 million red flags for being potential for someone long term. So mentally, I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep it casual with this guy and just have fun, right? There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. You should have fun when dating, but just be safe about it. So mentally, that's how I went in with it. Now, as I started to get to know him more and more, there were less emotional red flags and more safety red flags. Before you go out on a first date with someone that you have not met online, you should always meet them in a public place first. This man was very adamant about the fact that he wanted to come pick me up at my place. Like, there's being a gentleman, and then there's if a girl says no, even a man, gender doesn't matter. But if someone's not comfortable with that and they want to meet you in a public situation or scenario, you should honor that. Don't be pushy. This dude was a little pushy, but not directly. It was very indirect and almost manipulative, and I could kind of see through it. But then at the same time, I was going, wait, I had to stop and ask myself, okay, is this because of what I've been through in my past that I'm feeling this way? Or is my gut instinct trying to tell me something is not quite right about this situation and person? Because it wasn't very black and white at all. Then after that, this person said, oh, we should pick up something to drink. He wanted to go watch the Christmas lights, near in the area that I live. You can go walk through people's neighborhoods and look at Christmas lights, and people kind of tend to bring their own booze and walk around and drink and do that. So he said, oh, let's go pick up some alcohol and go and do that, and I can drive us there. And I was like, sir, I'm like, whoa, I'm more than capable. I can meet you there because it's a public place. I go, but I'm not comfortable with drinking and driving. For me, that's a no. If I touch alcohol, I do not drive. And I had voice. I go, I appreciate it. Go, let me feel it out. I go, we can go and do that, but let me feel it out and see how I want to go about it. And again, he very much was like, okay, yeah, sure, but then still kind of tried to push, let's get wasted, and I can come pick you up and I can drive us. He was just very adamant about trying to get me into his car and have me drink, when I already stated that I'm not sure if I want to. And again, I had to decide, I'm like, well, am I being a little uptight and am I being a little controlling maybe? Maybe I should just let loose and have fun. That was one side of me. The other side was going like 1 million sirens and red flags. This doesn't seem right. This seems really, really weird. So I made this decision at that point where I decided to trust my gut instinct, because I went, okay, emotionally, this isn't triggering me. I'm not having a visceral emotional response. I'm just sort of thinking something isn't okay. So I actually ended up telling this person in a nice way, hey, sorry, you know what, I don't think this is going to work out. I don't think we should meet up, but I wish you the best. It was a nice message. I wasn't, a dick about it, and I didn't ghost him, I was honest. And the response I got back was incredibly immature and really weird. So, when that happens, it's difficult to then go, okay, did I make the right decision? Did I trust myself? So that's one example. A second example are the friends around me that I trust. Now, Unfortunately, in my life, I have dealt with a lot of people who haven't really. How do I put this? A lot of people who don't want the best for me, but they pretend like they do. Mentally and emotionally, it can be very, very difficult to see the difference between your past experiences with people and maybe reflecting your insecurities and issues and unhealed problems with that onto another person, or are you picking up on them correctly and reading them correctly? I've had this go both ways, where I have mistakenly mentally made assumptions about a person based off my gut instinct, which it wasn't true. It was just me not trusting someone and not allowing them to show me who they are. And I've had it go the other way, where I was dead on right about someone's true intentions. So I've had a couple friends that I've made recently, and all female, which is amazing because I don't really tend to have a lot of female friends. And there's one girl, really, really sweet at first. We got to know each other. I thought, wow, she's like emotionally available. This is really cool. Then she kind of just disappeared, and mentally, I assumed that it had something to do with me, that maybe she had bad intentions, maybe she was jealous. Like, my mind just went crazy. And so I wrote her off and kind of kept her at a distance at that point, because I thought, okay, well, if someone's not willing to be my friend and I'm kind of trying and they're not trying back, I'm not going to try anymore. Like, I'm done. Come to find out, I assumed completely incorrectly. Poor girl was going through her own stuff emotionally. Someone had passed away. That's the difference between trusting our gut instinct and assuming the worst about a situation because of what we've been through. And it's really, really tough to do. It's not going to happen overnight. We all make mistakes. Like, I made a terrible mistake in assuming something poor about someone just based off my past experiences with other people and how they've treated me. So, this is how I tend to decipher the difference between a gut instinct and intuition trying to tell me something, and maybe it's a past trauma or trigger that I still haven't worked through, or an insecurity that I still have, something like that. The first thing I do is I feel the emotion in my body. I'm being dead serious about this. Our body can spiritually, mentally, and emotionally tell us what something is. For me personally, if it's my gut trying to tell me that something's wrong or something's off about someone or a situation, and not to do something and not to trust it, I feel it legitimately. I feel it in my gut. It'll be like this sinking feeling. If it's a sinking feeling, 9 times out of 10, and this is just personal to me, everyone could be different, 9 times out of 10, it's your body trying to tell you something ain't right. The second way I go about this is when I feel anxiety out of nowhere. For me, I have to always ask myself the question, okay, is it an emotional trigger? Did something trigger me and I'm not aware of it? Or is it my intuition trying to tell me about something going on right now that I'm not seeing or that I'm not aware of? This one is interesting. I actually just talked to a friend of mine about this recently. In situations of narcissistic abuse, when we meet someone, and I mean anyone, and Halsey actually mentioned something like this already, so this isn't my original thought and process, it's just something that I heard her say, and then started experiencing myself and realized that she's like dead on. So, when we meet someone for the first time, romantically, friend-wise, doesn't matter. If when you first meet them, you're anxious and you're hanging on to every word that they say, trying to figure out if what you're saying makes sense, trying to figure out if you're saying and doing the right thing, trying to make a good first impression, and you're always in a high stress, panicky, flighty feeling and mode, something is not right about that person. The right people in your life, it's fine to have like a little bit of anxiety, social anxiety and nerves when you first meet someone. That's normal. When you feel safe with someone and you're not consumed and always thinking about what you're doing and saying and feeling, you're safe. That person has good intentions for you. That's what I have found in my experience. The more of a high cortisol-like state you're in, it's your body's way of telling you something's wrong with this person. Your body will always know that something is wrong before your mind does. That's why we cry, and sometimes we don't know why we're crying, but our brain doesn't catch up to what's happening and we have to process our emotions. Our bodies are very intuitive by nature. Once I discover that my present experience is reflecting a past one, if that seems to be the case, ask yourself why. Say, well, okay, this is the same as what I've had before, then why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? When you start asking yourself more questions as to why you're feeling something, which is what I talked about in my people-pleasing podcast episode, it'll start to allow you to think deeper to understand how you respond to things and where it's coming from. Now, if for some reason you're still trying to figure out if you should trust the situation or not trust the situation, is it an emotional trigger? Is it a past trauma coming back up? If you still can't figure it out, what I do is I try to get grounded. Now, for me, getting grounded is meditating and just trying to root myself into the earth so I can just get more in touch with my body. When we have very heightened visceral emotional reactions, it's because our emotions are outside of us and we need to kind of bring them back inside and allow them to tell us what's really happening. So I'll meditate, or I'll do something that makes me feel stable, strong, and calm. I will go work out, I'll listen to some music, I'll go for a drive. If that still doesn't work, if you can't get grounded in any way, actually sometimes I've seen people hug a tree, I'm not even kidding. If you need to get grounded and your emotions are going haywire, walk outside, even just walking outside should help, and hug a tree. Make sure there's no spiders or anything weird, or ants, you don't want to get anything on you, but hug a tree, take a deep breath, and then come back to your situation and go, okay, is it my intuition still telling me something ain't right? If that's still the case, it'll still probably be there. Your intuition never goes away. Emotional reactions and responses eventually do dissipate over time. So if you notice that it goes away on its own, then oh, I was just really, really triggered. So, which leads me to the last step is, if I still can't decipher it, I give it some time. I give it about a day, which is difficult to do when you have anxiety. If the situation's really bugging you and you still don't feel like you know which way to go, give it some time. Give it some time and reconnect with yourself, and then look back at the situation and then ask yourself, okay, am I still having the same emotional response as last time? Is it still making me feel really, really triggered? Nope. Okay. Then I know that that's all that was. If you're still feeling all sorts of something's not right, it's your intuition. So that is all I have for you guys today. That is my process and my experience and some examples to go off of with how I deal with my intuition and emotional triggers and how to separate the two. It's still an ongoing process. I'm still trying to figure my own way through it. I have a few scenarios recently that I'm still trying to figure out, but I ended up getting through it, and I know that you can too. It might seem like a lot. It might seem like you can't trust yourself. And retrusting yourself after trauma is very, very difficult. This Friday, I have an episode just on that, trust after trauma. I dive into more how I started trusting myself again, because essentially that's what your intuition is, right? It's trusting yourself. But other than that, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed and liked this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Click the little subscribe button. Okay, it doesn't cost you anything. Just do it. And if you have any experiences with trusting yourself and your intuition and emotional triggers, comment them below. Let's share them. Let's share our experiences. I want to make this a safe space and a community for everyone to come to when you feel like you need to process something. So comment below. And be sure to look out for my podcast episode on Friday on how to learn to trust yourself again after trauma. And make sure you're subscribed so that you're notified of when I do upload it. It'll be on this channel and on my podcast platforms, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Stay safe out there, get grounded, and remember, you have to get through the eye of the storm to see the clear day ahead. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you next time.